few weeks ago, I uploaded a video called Where is Hytale, in which I pressured the development team for a break in their 7-month silence in the blog. I had a growing frustration for the repeated delays and broken promises, and was doubtful of any good news regarding the game's release. I'd like to think that my opinions reflected the feelings of the community as a whole at the time, and after my video was uploaded, many core community members finally snapped, losing their patience with the developers. Creative people who for years have been making content while waiting for this game criticized the team for their lack of communication and repeated delays. July 2021 is a far cry from the originally promised 2019 beta, and many Hytale fans lost hope of a release anytime soon, and left the fandom entirely. For those of us still holding on though, each passing month without so much as a mention of the release date brought higher expectations and even more disappointment. Until our worst fears were confirmed when Hytale finally broke the silence on July 1st, 2021 with the release of the Summer 2021 development update. In the blog post, we finally got what we were asking for, news of a release date. That being said though, let me warn you, it isn't good news. What has become increasingly apparent is that we have several more years of work ahead of us before Hytale is ready to launch. We don't want to provide another estimated launch window that turns out to be incorrect. However, we no longer expect to be ready to launch Hytale before 2023 at the latest, and it could very well take longer. There are two key considerations driving this assessment. The first is that our capabilities as a studio have significantly improved and the scope of what we can do has expanded. Put simply, we're better at making games than we used to be, but taking full advantage of this takes time. The second consideration is the need to develop Hytale in a way that allows us to bring it to multiple platforms as rapidly as possible. It's always been our goal to eventually release Hytale on mobile and consoles as well as PC, but it has become apparent that we are heading for a scenario where our community would ultimately find itself split across versions and devices. We think it is enormously important to avoid this, to create an ecosystem where as many players as possible can play together and share their creations. However, this means making major changes to Hytale's engine and our approach to launch, and this extends development time. So this confirms our worst fears. For a long time now, there's been a civil war in the Hytale pre-release community, the two sides being ready when it's ready and where's the game? For a long time, it's been seen as foolish to pressure the devs into an early release because we all know what happens when a game is released before it's ready. On the other hand, we have already given the team 2 years of patience since the announcement trailer on a game that has been in development since April of 2015. You heard me correctly, Hytale's been in development for over 6 years. It's a reasonable fear, in my opinion, to think that Hytale is in a state that I'd like to call development hell, where the developers are never satisfied with the content that they're making and constantly scrap and remake aspects of the game, infinitely pushing the release date further into the future. I personally have experience with development hell, considering a project of mine, RP Games Engine, is a victim of that. The RP Games Engine is a project I started in sophomore year of high school back in 2014 with the goal of easily making top-down 2D RPG games in the style of classic Pokemon. The number one cause for development hell is a changing game engine, which my project has suffered through many times. As I learned better coding practices and adopted better technologies, I started out using Windows Forms and Visual Basic, upgraded to GDI Plus with VB, monogame with VB, then finally monogame with C#, which that last one is a complete change in programming language. Every system in the game has been deleted and recoded at least 3 times over the past 5 years, before my YouTube career finally picked up some steam and my attention drifted away from it. I do intend on finishing it at some point though, but for right now, I'm a little busy with the situation we have right now. As we learned in the July 2021 blog post, Hytale 2 is suffering from a change in game engine, as they go multi-platform, specifically targeting the mobile market. This is something I predicted back in 2014, by the way. It was an interesting watch. I'd recommend the video. By definition, Hytale is already a victim of development hell, and I would go as far to say that at this point, it's basically just vaporware. I know that there are development builds of it out there somewhere amongst the development team, but they made it very clear that no one from the outside has even gotten to look at the game, let alone play it. So it basically, from our point of view, might as well be vaporware. As much as I love the concept, the people, and the footage that we've seen so far, none of it feels real. And now, with another 2 years of waiting, I made the decision to take a step back from Hytale until a release date is officially announced. The game's release has already been delayed by 4 years. Who's to say, once 2023 comes around, that they won't delay it again? This means a change of plans for me and the YouTube channel. Obviously, this news was devastating for Fezzy and I. We've been counting on the release of the game to save the channel since early 2020, which is now over a year and a half ago. Skyblock has developed into a state where all you can really do to make new videos is grind for coins, buy some new item, show it off for 10 minutes, and then go back to grinding. To make a typical Skyblock stream nowadays, there's a minimum of 5 to 7 hours of grinding in-game to get the materials and coins together, 3 to 4 hours of streaming to get the highlight footage, and then 6 to 8 hours of sorting through the footage and finally polishing it. That means 14 to 19 hours of work per upload every single day. That simply isn't sustainable. For a year and a half, we put up with the rigorous daily upload schedule and a massive amount of work for each video in the hope that the channel would still be alive by the time the game releases, so we can finally branch out and not be limited by Skyblock videos anymore. To hold on just a little bit longer, in October of last year, I introduced a 25% non-high-pixel Skyblock video rule, where 1 in every 4 videos would be some attempt to branch out, and it's probably not too surprising, this is one of those. Now that Hytale is at a minimum of 2 years away, we can't continue this way. I tend to agree with Fezzy in a tweet he made. The only way things are going to change is if I change it, and I can't rely on anything, so change is coming. My interpretation of this situation is that we need to be the change that we want to see in our situation. There is no external influence that's going to pull us out of this hole. If we're going to survive on YouTube, we can't rely on Hytale. That's why, starting now, I'm going to make an effort to not only have 25% of my videos be not Skyblock, but also 50% of my content be pre-recorded rather than stream highlights. Stream highlights brought us a long way, but honestly, the amount of work to polish an unplanned video project is becoming way too much. We're struggling just to keep up with the daily upload schedule, and are bottlenecked with just how fast we can process the footage from the streams and turn them into videos that we can schedule. Hopefully, recording more concise and well thought out videos like this one should allow us to finally build a buffer of pre-made videos so that we can take much needed breaks without skipping days. Finally, I want to end the year of 2021 with an upgrade to the 25% rule to the 50% rule, meaning half of all of my videos from that point on not being Skyblock. Of course, this is unless something changes with the game and they somehow make it easier for content creators, which, if I'm gonna make a guess now, is not going to happen. Who knows how long Hypixel Skyblock will still be popular, but it's obvious that we can't rely on it forever to keep the channel alive. With 50% of content not being Skyblock, we have an average of 3.5 attempts per week to get something new to gain traction. One way to think about this is like investing. Typically, people will have a large percentage of their money in something safe, like cash or what's called an exchange traded fund or real estate, and they'd have a small percentage in something like cryptocurrency that's very volatile, like every day could fluctuate like 5 to 10%, which anyone that's in investing knows that's insane. $100 can turn to $90 one day, can turn to $150 the next day, can turn to $70 the next day. At the moment, Skyblock videos represent our safe investment, which is fairly consistent, and it's, up until this point, brought us reliable growth on the channel, and it keeps the stats up. The 25% non-Skyblock videos represent the risky investments. The video performance is unpredictable, typically leaning on the worst performance side. But in my opinion, that's fine though, because all it takes is a few of these uploads doing better than average to make that investment worthwhile. As you may expect, it's a massive risk making 50% of your portfolio cryptocurrency. But I don't think we have a choice at this point. Going back to, instead of, the comparison with crypto, YouTube is a place where you innovate or you get left behind, so we need to adapt. Considering how much needs to change on the YouTube side of things, I also figured I'd change up some things about my personal life. Change is scary, and moving forward without the safe option of Hytale content, it's something that brings me a ton of anxiety. Hytale represented a guaranteed way forward, a way to captivate our pre-existing audience and move them over to something that we can make content for years. Now that that's not there, to compensate for the volatility nowadays, with the fact that we're basically left to our own devices, I hope to bring stability in my personal life at least. This way, if let's say my pay is cut in half or even a quarter, that I could still function and still make attempts to make this thing work. So, first off, I'm buying a house. Regardless of the bad news with Hytale and the difficulty of uploading Skyblock, the channel has seen a lot of success these past 2 years. And I made the careful decision to invest a large chunk of what I made into a down payment on a house to reduce my monthly cost of living. Renting right now costs about $1,200 a month, $300 in utilities. Between a mortgage, property taxes, home insurance, utilities, I should end up paying $2,000 a month, which is $500 more, which sounds counterproductive at first, but I would then like to have the option to rent out the basement for $1,200 a month, bringing my monthly cost down to $800, which is about half the cost of renting, while also building, I think, something like $750 in equity each month. If you want to include equity and tax write-offs, I would actually be profiting $50 a month to live in my own house with a tenant in the basement. I know this is very exciting from a Minecraft YouTuber, but anyway, the other part of that would be continuing my stock trading portfolio. So for those of you that missed out on my finances video, I talked a lot about my investing in the stock market. Of course, you know, housing is not my only expense as well. I estimate between groceries, car insurance, and payments, phone plan, other subscriptions, it's roughly another $1,100 a month. I want to eventually build my portfolio to reach true financial independence, which means being able to pay for my living without any active effort whatsoever. I don't ever plan on putting in no effort, but it seems like a good goal to have in case I need to start over and go for some time without any active income. If I assume that my investments return 8% per year after inflation, something like S&P 500, that means I would need roughly $250,000 saved and invested to cover my expenses. That's a lot of money, but I think I can manage it over the next 2 years, assuming that everything doesn't fall apart. This number is definitely not sustainable for the rest of my life. Most investors would say that true financial independence is assuming only a 4% return per year. It's basically hedging against the bad years, which means that I would need over 500 grand saved and invested. That's not realistic at all. Then again, if we are calculating things long term, you know, like 4+ years from now, I wouldn't have a car payment anymore because I would have paid it off. I'd probably have cheaper insurance since I'd be older. I'm only 23 right now. Home equity build up and tax breaks for the real estate technically means that it only costs $650 a month to live, which, believe it or not, if you assume the 4%, is something I can actually handle right now. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, this is the foundation for my continuing to be self-employed. Again, if my job situation ever falls apart, which is very unlikely, there's still a lot of momentum on this channel despite the fact that Hytale's not a thing. I'd like to maintain my lifestyle without changing anything, which would allow me enough free time to find another venture or put a bunch of time into something that might not be giving upfront returns. You know, like trying to change direction with a YouTube channel. Who knows? This sounds like I'm prepping for the apocalypse, which it definitely is not. We're still getting 5 million views a month on the channel. And, you know, we've uploaded 29 videos this past half a year that's not Skyblock. That's a full month. So a full month of videos with typical performance is not bad at all. It's not quite 25%, but it's getting there. So, you know, I'm pretty confident that we can at least plateau over the next 2 years, preferably still grow the channel somehow, but you know, it's better safe than sorry. Like I get some pretty major anxiety from time to time because of my experiences with college. So, you know, this is my way of dealing with that. Having a backup, something where I have the control, will make things a lot less anxious for me. For now though, Hytale does not exist. I can't rely on it releasing in 2 years because there is no guarantee of that, and it very well can get delayed again. I need to bring the change that I want to see in my life, and because of that, I am done waiting. Hytale does not exist to me, nor will it, even for 2 years. I will only become interested when they say the game is releasing on X day of X month. Until then, it doesn't exist. I'm not preparing for it. I'm not trying to hold out, waiting until the release of Hytale. I'm not going to stretch content just so it can last that long. No, I'm here now, and I need to make the channel work now. What am I going to be able to do right now that can progress us and make it so that Fezzi and I don't have to hedge against our own personal apocalypse? What do we need to do? And I think, honestly, it's branching out. I'm going to try a little bit more mainstream Minecraft content. We'll see how it goes. Considering previous videos, maybe not that well, but you know what? I'm going to try anyways. The fan mails have been doing pretty good. People tend to like vlogging content from me, and I'll definitely do more of that when, you know, I mean, buying a house is a pretty big freaking deal, especially for a 23-year-old, so that could be an interesting vlog in itself. Maybe the remodel project, maybe me hanging out with my dad. Fun fact, the house I'm looking at right now is neighboring my dad's house. I would literally be my own dad's neighbor. How funny would that be? But anyways, I think at least on the vlogging side of things, there's definitely some potential there. But, you know, of course, I'm not going to ever settle. If something works well for me, I'm not going to run it into the ground unless I absolutely have to. And it's starting to seem like that's how it is with Skyblock. But I really hope by this time, 6 months from now, that is not what we're doing anymore. But anyway, no more surviving until Hytale. It's time for action.